The rain fell in relentless sheets, drumming against the roof of the old battered station wagon as it wound its way through the dense, fog-laden forest. The road was little more than a dirt track, overgrown with twisted roots and gnarled branches that seemed to reach out like skeletal fingers. Inside the car, 4 friends, Emma, Jack, Sarah, and Lucas, were on their way to Blackwood Manor, a sprawling, decrepit estate rumored to be haunted. Emma, the de facto leader of the group, had stumbled upon the idea during a late-night internet deep dive. She had always been fascinated by the supernatural, and the stories surrounding Blackwood Manor were too intriguing to resist. The manor had been abandoned for decades, ever since the mysterious disappearance of its last inhabitants, the Blackwood family. Locals whispered of ghostly apparitions, strange noises, and an ever-present sense of dread that hung over the property like a shroud. "Are you sure about this, Emma?" Sarah asked, her voice tinged with apprehension. She peered out the window at the foreboding landscape, her fingers nervously twisting the hem of her jacket. "Of course," Emma replied, her eyes alight with excitement. "Think of the stories we'll have to tell after this. Besides, it's just an old house. What could possibly go wrong?" Jack, ever the skeptic, chuckled. "Probably just a bunch of creaky floors and drafty rooms. But if it gets too boring, we can always make up our own ghost stories." Lucas, the quietest of the group, simply nodded, his expression unreadable. He had a knack for blending into the background, but his eyes were sharp and observant, taking in every detail of their surroundings. As the manor came into view, a sense of foreboding settled over the group. The once grand estate was now a shadow of its former self, its walls crumbling and its windows dark and foreboding. The front door stood ajar, as if inviting them into its dark embrace. The friends entered the manor, their footsteps echoing eerily in the cavernous foyer. The air was thick with dust and the scent of decay, and the only light came from the dim beams of their flashlights. The interior was a maze of shadowy corridors and abandoned rooms, each one filled with the remnants of a bygone era. As they explored, they found remnants of the Blackwood family's life, faded photographs, dusty furniture, and old yellowed letters. Emma, ever the historian, was particularly intrigued by the letters, which hinted at a dark family secret. "Listen to this," she said, reading aloud. "The shadows grow longer each day, and I fear they will consume us all." Jack rolled his eyes. Sounds like someone was a bit dramatic. But Sarah shivered, feeling a chill that had nothing to do with the cold. "I don't know, Jack. There's something about this place." As night fell, the manor seemed to come alive with strange noises, creaking floorboards, distant footsteps, and the faintest of whispers. The friends settled into the parlor, trying to ignore the oppressive atmosphere. They built a fire and attempted to distract themselves with stories and jokes, but the sense of unease was palpable. It was then that they first heard the whispering. It was soft at first, like the rustling of leaves, but gradually it grew louder, more distinct. The voices were unintelligible, but their tone was unmistakably malevolent. "Did you hear that?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Lucas nodded, his eyes wide. "It's coming from the hallway." Emma stood up, her curiosity piqued. "Let's check it out." The group followed the sound, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. The whispering grew louder, more insistent, leading them to a door at the end of the corridor. The door was slightly ajar, and a faint light emanated from within. Emma pushed the door open, revealing a small, dimly lit room. In the center of the room was an old, ornate mirror, its surface covered in a thick layer of dust. The whispering seemed to be coming from the mirror itself, as if the voices were trapped within. As they watched, the mirror's surface began to shimmer, and the reflections of the friends distorted and twisted. The whispers grew louder, forming words. "Leave. Now. Or suffer." The friends backed away, their hearts pounding. The mirror's surface returned to normal, but the sense of dread lingered. The next morning, the friends awoke to find the manor eerily silent. The events of the previous night seemed like a distant nightmare, but the memory of the whispering mirror was still fresh in their minds. Determined to uncover the truth, Emma suggested they search the manor for more clues. They split up, each taking a different section of the house. As they explored, they discovered more remnants of the Blackwood family's life: old diaries, faded photographs, and strange, cryptic symbols etched into the walls. Emma found a hidden staircase behind a bookcase, leading down to a dimly lit cellar. The air was cold and damp, and the walls were lined with shelves filled with dusty bottles and old, leather-bound books. In the center of the room was a large wooden table, covered in strange instruments and faded documents. As she examined the documents, Emma discovered a diary belonging to Eliza Blackwood, the last matriarch of the family. The diary contained detailed accounts of the family's descent into madness, driven by a dark obsession with the supernatural. Eliza had been convinced that the manor was built on a site of great power, and she had conducted dark rituals in an attempt to harness that power. The diary also revealed the truth about the Blackwood family's disappearance. Eliza had performed a ritual that had gone horribly wrong, unleashing a malevolent force that had consumed the family. The force, a shadowy entity, had trapped their souls within the manor, dooming them to an eternity of torment. Emma's heart raced as she read the diary, realizing the danger they were in. She rushed to find the others, determined to warn them. Meanwhile, Jack and Sarah had discovered a hidden room filled with strange artifacts and more cryptic symbols. As they examined the room, they heard a faint, eerie melody coming from somewhere nearby. Following the sound, they found an old, dusty piano in a forgotten corner of the manor. The melody was haunting, and as they listened, they felt a strange compulsion to play it. As Jack's fingers danced across the keys, the manor seemed to come alive. The walls pulsed with a strange energy, and the air was filled with a palpable sense of dread. The melody grew louder, more insistent, and the friends felt an overwhelming urge to flee. Emma found the others just as the melody reached a crescendo. The manor was now alive with strange noises and flickering lights, and the air was thick with a suffocating energy. The friends huddled together, their hearts pounding in their chests. The entity, the shadowy force that had trapped the Blackwood family, began to manifest. It took the form of a swirling mass of shadows, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. The friends could feel its malevolent presence, a cold, suffocating force that seemed to seep into their very souls. The entity spoke, its voice a chilling whisper that echoed through the manor. "You have awakened me. Now you will join the others." The friends tried to run, but the manor seemed to close in around them, the walls shifting and twisting in a dizzying dance. The entity pursued them, its shadowy form stretching and contorting as it drew closer. In a desperate bid for survival, Emma remembered the diary's mention of a ritual that could banish the entity. She shouted instructions to the others, hoping to buy them some time. Jack and Sarah, still at the piano, began to play a new melody, one that was discordant and jarring. The entity recoiled, its form flickering and wavering. Lucas, meanwhile, searched for the items needed for the ritual, his hands shaking as he gathered the necessary ingredients. Emma recited the incantation from the diary, her voice trembling but determined. The manor shook violently, the air filled with a deafening roar. The entity shrieked, its form dissolving into a swirling vortex of shadows. The friends held their breath, waiting for the ritual to take effect. The vortex began to collapse, the shadows slowly dissipating. The manor grew silent, the oppressive energy lifting. The friends emerged from the manor, battered but alive. The storm had passed, and the first light of dawn was breaking over the horizon. They stood in silence, the events of the night still fresh in their minds. As they made their way back to the car, they couldn't shake the feeling that they had barely escaped with their lives. The manor loomed behind them, its dark secrets still hidden within its crumbling walls. The friends returned to their normal lives, but the experience at Blackwood Manor had left its mark. Emma, in particular, was haunted by the diary's revelations and the knowledge that the entity was still out there, waiting. Months passed, and the friends tried to move on. But the memories of the manor lingered, a constant reminder of the darkness that lay just beneath the surface of the world. One night, Emma awoke to find the diary lying on her bedside table, its pages opened to a new entry. The handwriting was Eliza Blackwood's, but the date was from the future. The entry spoke of a new awakening, a resurgence of the entity's power. Emma's blood ran cold as she read the words. The shadows are gathering. They will come for you. They will come for all of us. The friends reunited, realizing that their ordeal was far from over. The entity was still alive, and it was only a matter of time before it returned. Determined to put an end to the entity's reign of terror, the friends decided to return to Blackwood Manor. They gathered the necessary items for the ritual, hoping to banish the entity once and for all. As they approached the manor, the air grew thick with tension. The once familiar building now seemed alien and hostile, its dark windows like eyes watching their every move. The friends entered the manor, their hearts pounding with a mixture of fear and determination. The entity awaited them, its form more powerful than ever. It towered over them, a swirling mass of shadows and malice. The friends enacted the ritual, their voices rising in unison. The manor shook violently, the air filled with a deafening roar. The entity fought back, its power threatening to overwhelm them, but the friends held firm, their resolve unwavering. The ritual reached its climax, and the entity began to disintegrate, its form dissolving into the ether. As the last of the shadows faded, the manor fell silent. The oppressive energy lifted, and the air was filled with a sense of peace. The friends emerged from the manor, their hearts lighter, but their minds still burdened by the knowledge of the darkness that had been unleashed. They had defeated the entity, but the experience had changed them, leaving them with a newfound appreciation for the fragility of life and the power of friendship. As they drove away, they vowed to keep the events of Blackwood Manor a secret, to protect others from the horrors they had faced. But they also knew that the world was full of hidden dangers, and that their journey was far from over. The manor stood silent and empty, its dark secrets buried once more. But the friends knew that the shadows still lingered, waiting for the day when they would rise again. And somewhere, in the depths of the manor, a faint whisper echoed through the halls, a chilling reminder that the darkness was never truly gone.